I say I get an ARP card in the mail now too, so that's true. Yeah, they both called saying they were running late. Here she is. You good? Danny's
He'll be
running
here
late as well. I'm doing well. How about you?
Okay,
We do Pat, Mike, then Dan?
it's been a
That's
while.
what we thought.
Pat, Mike, Dan?
Yeah.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
I got grandkids at my house.
Probably got to start your recording again, huh, Jen?
It is, yeah.
See, knew I didn't trust you.
Have we heard from Danny? Everything
Yes, he's on
okay?
his way, but
Okay.
he has us to do ours first.
Repeat the order again.
You, Mike, Dan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Whenever you are, I'm good.
Yep.
Trustee Guerra?
Here.
Trustee Calandrella? Trustee...
Wow.
Trustee Carroll?
Here.
Timing is everything.
Look at that.
Public Safety, approval of minutes?
Madam
December
Chair-
4th?
Madam Chair,
Trustee Carroll.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Public Safety Committee of December 4th, 2017.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of January 2nd, 2018.
Madam Chair,
Trustee
I
Carroll.
move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Public Safety Committee of January 2nd, 2018.
All in favor?
Aye.
Disposal of equipment.
Madam Chair,
Trustee
I
Carroll.
move to recommend to the village board to pass an ordinance entitled Ordinance Authorizing Disposal of Personal Property, parenthetically computer equipment, owned by the village of Orland Park, Illinois.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ordinance amending parking regulations for the Main Street Triangle.
Madam Chair.
Oh, wait 1 second, Mr.
Oh.
Trustee.
Madam
I
Chair,
think,
this is an ordinance to prevent parkers parking in our unpaved lot between Range Road and Jefferson commuters from time to time. Our new assistant village manager, Mr. T, is very concerned that we make that meet on $1 or $2. And insisted that we enact this ordinance to prevent that in the future.
Now, was there any truth
Appreciate
there?
it.
Era of HPO and efficiency, we're very pleased to do it.
Now, is that where he tackled somebody? Was it in the parking north of 142? Was that where the tackle occurred? The Assistant Village Manager Keating, I just heard a story, never mind.
we'll have to talk about that.
Oh, retail mercantile establishment.
A
Gotcha.
rather
Okay.
large one, I think.
Certainly wasn't
I
a
was
football.
I was merging stories apparently.
Yeah, he could have,
I haven't made the motion yet.
it could have been at Soldier Field. We could have used it more there. Well, maybe not. Never mind.
Madam Chair,
Trustee Carroll.
I move to recommend that the village board to pass an ordinance entitled an ordinance amending Title 9, Chapter 9 of the Orland Park Village Code by amending parking regulations for the Main Street Triangle.
All in favor?
Aye. Want to do yours or mine? Mine?
Give me 1 second. Finance Committee, approval of December 4th, 2017, regular meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Giro.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Finance Committee of December 4, 2017.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the January 2nd, 2018, regular meeting minutes, or Finance Committee meetings.
I'm off still.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Giro.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Finance Committee of January 2, 2018.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Amendment to the village contracting and bidding procedures.
Is there a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Chair,
Trustee Calandrello.
I move to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees to pass an ordinance entitled an ordinance amending Title 1, Chapter 10, Village Finances of the Orland Park Village Code to update the village contracting and bidding procedures.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is, as you know, we we changed the ordinance to allow us to do posting for the requesting of bids rather than put everything in the newspaper. This would allow us also to accept from vendors bids electronically. Does not require them to submit them at this time, but it would allow them to submit those electronically. And I believe there's a software, Ann, is that correct? Is this part of the same thing?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
going to use a web-based portal. It's called BidNet Direct, and that's where we're going to post all of our bids and RFPs, and then they'll be able to submit electronically through that portal.
The initial submission or the initial use of that portal is free to us, and then if
It's
we want
free to us. If
some
we want-
accounting software and things like that that we can use later on.
Yeah,
that
if we want to actually like do bid evaluation on
Right.
that portal, then we would pay for that, but initially, there's no cost to us.
Okay. Any other questions about that? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Transfer of 2018 volume cap.
I'll make up some slack, Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Calendrillo.
I would recommend to the village board to pass an ordinance entitled an ordinance approving the transfer value cap in with private active bond issuances and related matters.
Second.
This is the annual program where we transfer our allocated volume cap, as we have in the past, to the city of Aurora, who's the lead issuer of the assist homeownership program, which we know we've done in the past. This is for Ann and for Mr. Lamargo. I know we've put some effort into getting the word out that we're participating in this. We haven't done anything actively with the banks and mortgage lenders in town, have we?
Well, we don't do it, the village does not do it, but the city of Aurora and also David Roush, who's from the firm that manages this process, they reach out to our local banks. In 2017, we had 9 loans that were made by local banks through this assist program for a total amount of about $1.5 million. So our local banks do participate. They consistently try to get more of them involved, but they do participate. And like I said, we had 9 sales that took place in 2017 where they got the cash down payment, they got the lower interest rate through this program.
The only other thing I would maybe recommend to either PIO or to, I don't know, this wouldn't be finance. The chamber, I know, has a lot of mortgage lenders and banks that are members, just to let them know we're doing it too. I mean, 9 is great, but those are 9 properties in Orland Park, huh?
Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great. I know former Chairman Ruzick wanted us to get the word out last year, and I'd like to continue that. I know we did. And maybe if we reach out to the chamber as well, let them know that we're participating in this program.
Yep. Yeah, I have a press release and a flyer that was
Great.
given to us, so we can send all that out.
That's awesome.
Wonderful.
I know, yeah, I remember. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Calendrillo?
Just to echo, I think this is a great program for young families getting Orland Park to get past the sticker shock of the down payment. So I think it's really good.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. No other questions?
It does lower the down payment, I believe, to 3%. Is that correct?
They can even get assistance on the down payment, right?
It gives you
Yeah.
assistance to
Yeah.
make that down payment.
Right?
It's an excellent
It
program.
even gets into FHA and VA. I read through the program. It's a great program, and I know mortgage lenders know about these programs. I just don't know if our local banks and mortgage lenders know that we're participating. But I know we have put some effort out, and maybe if we reach out to the chamber
Yep.
as well, we can get more word out. All right. No other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
IMRF resolution to include cash payments related to health insurance as IMRF earnings.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Calendrillo.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve authorization to be given to pass resolution allowing cash payments in lieu of or related to health care benefits to be reported as IMRF earnings.
Second.
This program is something we've had for a while where we can offer a cash payment in lieu of providing health care to an employee or employees. In the past, it never required any further action. The IMRF Board of Trustees in December of 2017 passed their own resolution requiring any unit of employment that wanted to continue to do so to pass its own resolution allowing that. And that's what this is. Any other questions for the HR department?
Mr. Chair, this is all full-time employees, I'm assuming.
Yeah, because it would be people that would be eligible for the health insurance, yes. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Parks and Rec approval of December 4th, 2017 regular 2017 Parks and Recreation minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Guerra.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Committee of December 4, 2017.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Approval of January 2nd, 2018 Parks and Recreation minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Trustee
I
Carroll.
move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Committee of January 2nd, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
John Humphrey update.
Sure. That sounds good to me. Anyone has objection? No? All right.
Contract with Creshmore Group to conduct a feasibility and business plan for Orland Park. Are we good?
Yep.
Take your time, John.
2 seconds per slide, that'd be great.
All right, so. All right, so item 2. Looking for a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Carroll.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve a contract with Creshmore Group not to exceed $35,000 for a feasibility analysis and business plan for Orland Park's multi-sports facility, and recommend authorizing the village manager to execute the necessary contracts.
Who wants to take this a little bit?
Well,
Sure.
Need a
Oh,
second?
sorry.
have a
Well, I'll
second.
give you a second, but I want to hear more about
Right.
this.
This kind of goes with the PowerPoint
Were you
presentation.
guys making a joke that I didn't catch about John needing time to set up?
So actually, we'll go ahead and do this one. So we received a proposal from Creshmore to do a feasibility and business plan for our recreational sports complexes. You have on your desk a revised proposal that we just received this afternoon. And I'll just briefly walk you through what the changes are with what you had in your packets on Friday versus what you have today. But this does tie into John's proposal on the John Humphrey Complex. So what we did was we kind of took a little bit of a step back here and took a look at these complexes in a more broad way and more inclusive way. And we received this proposal from this group. They're an Orland Park business located in Orland Park. They have a lot of experience in programming, marketing, and providing design assistance on regional sporting facilities throughout the Midwest area. So the proposal that you have in your packet was originally, the motion reads for up to $35,000. The proposal you have before you tonight up on your dais is actually up to $30,000. They actually, we got a revised proposal where they reduced the hourly rates, as well as they added in the catchy fields as an additional area where they could take a look at to see long-term what might be needed, not just from the programming for our local community groups, but also what they might recommend if we wanted to enlarge the opportunities to do more regional sporting events that could draw in additional visitors to Orland Park that would generate direct and indirect economic development benefits. That's really what this part of the project is about. So they're going to look at John Humphrey, they're going to look at Centennial, and they're going to look at the Catchy Park. The original proposal you had in your packets included also, as an alternative, up to 75 additional acres if we were able to acquire additional land. This proposal you have before you tonight just removes that. And that's why there's a decrease in the cost of the proposal from $35,000 to $30,000. So I'm available to answer any questions. This does tie into John's presentation on some of the renovation ideas and options that we have for the John Humphrey Complex specifically, because this study, this feasibility study and the business plan, the marketing plan would include the John Humphrey Complex as well.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Carroll. Trustee Carroll.
if I could ask Assistant Village Manager Freiling about this. I see, and this makes a little bit more sense, because I received a phone call an hour or so ago from Trustee Dodge, who's not on this committee, but apparently had some involvement in recruiting this consultant. And he had made mention of a separate component of a 75-acre potential purchase
Yes,
or
that is
acquisition.
not in what's before you
Right.
right now, so you're
And he
going to
had-
amend
I'm
the
sorry, go ahead.
motion.
Yeah, he had identified that that was a $5,000 component, which makes sense that the proposal would go from 35 to 30, but if that's the $5,000 component that makes the difference between 35 and 30, and I see that the hourly rates have gone down significantly, that's a not to exceed amount, the 30,
Yes,
right?
it's going to,
Okay.
they'll bill us hourly, not to exceed that amount. That doesn't mean we're going to spend that amount.
All right. And I'm looking through it as we speak, too. I don't see any other significant change to the agreement,
No.
other than that part of it.
Right.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm informal. Go ahead.
I'm
think you're
just
off, but-
wondering there.
No, I think your mic's off.
There.
So everyone can hear.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is this the only firm that does this sort of work? I mean, are we kind of rushing something?
I'm sure they're not the only firm that does it. They're probably the only firm that does it that's based out of Orland Park and has a good knowledge about our local teams as well as our local facilities, which is why I believe Trustee Dodge introduced them to us. We met with them a number of times as well to get a clear understanding of the depth and the different projects they have worked on, which has been pretty there are quite a few projects he successfully has managed and brought forward and have proven to be successful. So I think those are the reasons why he was brought in, because they're local. He's from Orland Park. Their business is Orland Park. They know us very well. They know our facilities already. They know the groups that use our facilities as well. And I think those things kind of set them apart from whether we would just go out and do a blanket like RFQ or RFP.
I definitely think this is a good, I know we paused a little bit when we had discussions about John Harvey. This is a good, another information point where I was looking at holistic. I'm glad we put in catchy with it. And we're gonna have a lot of different information points that we could figure out for our holistic, comprehensive plan for our parks and recs in the future. So I think this is a good step. And I know these folks have been working with some of our OYA people, so, and all the other youth groups. So it's good that we're all, they definitely know the input that we need. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Sure. Carol?
I know we've asked Assistant Village Manager Keating to put off his 45 slides, which it's gone up to 50. All right, great. Is staff recommending that we sign this agreement based on the work that you've done with the various sports organizations?
That is correct. Actually, this organization, Dave Wabeck and his sons, he has two sons that are involved also. Just some history. I wasn't aware that they were bringing him in, but once I heard his name, being a travel baseball coach dating back to 2003, quite a few tournaments that, USSSA tournaments that we had entered were run at the time by Dave Wabeck and his organization in USSSA. So there is some past history, name recognition that I was aware of when when the meeting was set up. So sound, integrity, character is what I could recall from the quality of the tournaments that we had entered personally when I lived in, or actually still live, but New Lenox Rebels when I was coaching there. So I think when the recommendation was to have this meeting, the knowledge base, not just local tournaments, but also regional, and DJ, his son that's also involved, that's on the proposal there, has some international knowledge also. So we feel a more comprehensive look, revenue stream, that this is a good company to explore.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll?
Before I forget, I do want to amend my motion to strike the $35,000 number and replace it with a $30,000 number. Trustee Kier would second that amendment.
Second, yeah. One other question.
Trustee Carroll?
Has staff had any dealings with this organization or background with them? Have they met with them at all? Our park staff has not met with them at all?
No, not yet, because we haven't entered into an agreement with them yet, but we would engage them with them. Myself, Assistant Village Manager Freiling, and Assistant Village Manager Keating have sat down with them based on the direction that we've received from the board, and in some other conversations that we've had, that we believe that Mr. Waback and his firm can assist us with what we're trying to accomplish here.
If no one objected, I think we jumped ahead. I think if no one objection from the board, let's just have John do his presentation, and this way maybe I think there's some pieces missing, and I think the pieces will be together unless there's objection from anyone up here.
See if I have enough coffee to get through 50 slides. I do. Okay, great. All right.
Do you want to vote on this or leave it open? Or
We'll leave it open until the presentation, and then we'll come back if that's okay with everyone.
I didn't realize the two were connected, so, okay.
Okay.
All right, John, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time, Trustee Carroll asked me to put together a short PowerPoint presentation. So just to give you a little history, as you well know, On December 18th, staff recommended or presented a recommendation regarding temporary football facility at Schussler Park, temporarily relocating the Pioneers for 3 to 5 years. Some drainage improvements, some field restorations needed to be done at John Humphrey. It was identified for years. Finally, some dollars were put aside, and thus staff researched and met with the Pioneers, came up with some needs and wants and what they needed to with their organization, and Schussler was presented to them. At that time, there was some concerns voiced by the organization, and at that time, the board directed staff to postpone the relocation of the football programs at John Humphrey, have staff take a more comprehensive look at it, see if there's any other options, any other locations that we can displace them. So with that, that was the direction, and the board asked for staff to come back on this date and provide an update. So as I looked into it and really drilled down into it with staff, with Nancy, with Nancy's group, as far as the scheduling, to try to take a look at, who are the stakeholders, who are the ones that actually rent out John Humphrey Complex, and who is going to be displaced. It isn't just the Pioneers. The redevelopment of Humphrey would affect multiple organizations. So we kind of drilled down, look at the numbers, which we did. I'm going to speed through some of these slides. So some of the rental organizations are up there, and I'll give you guys a copy of this after we're done. And then after really getting a good feel for, in my knowledge based, how often these fields are scheduled throughout from April to November, it was quite extensive. As you know, we've talked about it before. When you look at baseball and softball, you're talking 1,500 just baseball and softball participants and another 1,800 soccer. So even though Pioneers might have to locate to a different field within the village, it still could affect soccer or some of the other organizations that utilize Centennial, Eagle Ridge, and what have you. So as I scroll through here, really when we talk about game day and who would really be, who would lose their homecoming game day, Pioneers, that was one of the concerns. When I look at the Orland Park Knights also use Humphrey for their homecoming, but predominantly there's quite a few games that the Pioneers play at, the home games play at Sandburg. The only game that they play home for their tackle program is homecoming. Now, talking to the organizations that utilize Humphrey for football game fields, the human component, they really like the neighborhood feel. They like, it's just more old school football. They do like Sandburg. However, it's just a different feel is how they explained it to me. So up this slide here just indicates, how often in 2017 that actual game field is utilized. So what I did is, I reached out to the stakeholders that are involved, the different organizations, to find out what their needs, what their wants, how they felt about the relocation and the redevelopment of Humphrey. All of them stated, the baseball, or not all of them, but majority of them stated the baseball fields are in a condition that need to be improved. That goes without saying. And when I asked, how would relocation or the displacement affect their organization at Humphrey? So I really did reach out to as many as possible. Some didn't get back to me, but these are the ones that I actually spoke to and met with. When you talk about 135, part of that comprehensive plan that Kerry spoke about with the Wabeck Company, with Creshmore, taking a look at all that green space. You have 11 acres at John Humphrey, you have an additional 7 acres up at High Point, 4 acres up on the top pad on West Avenue. Take a look at, if we had a clean slate, how could we, find the needs of our community, and what could we do if we had the total redevelopment of the area. 135, we have a lease agreement, or an intergovernmental agreement with them that expires in August of 2019. Reached out to the superintendent, asked if we decided to, our final layout or footprint would be to redevelop some portion of Humphrey or all of it, would they be agreeable to it? And of course, they did agree that if there was a mutual by agreement benefit to the community as well as their school district, that they would consider a long-term lease agreement. I didn't discuss terms with them at that time, but they know that whether it be 10, 25, 50-year lease agreement, depending on the dollars that we would put into the redevelopment, they would definitely consider it. When you talk about District 230, one of the issues is, and if we were to relocate the Pioneer program as a whole, that means 300 total, an additional cheer. Where could we find a spot for them? If Schussler wasn't a viable option, where could we put them and possibly keep them all together instead of displacing different teams to different, their numbers are substantial when you talk, 50 football coaches, 35 cheer coaches. So with that, I had meetings with District 330 personnel, started with the football coach, then as late as Friday, I sat down with the school principal, the athletic director, and the scheduler, and they have agreed that a relocation for the Pioneer program, as well as absorbing some of those football games that would be displaced for game day games for St. Mike's and the Knights, they would take them on over at Sandburg. The issue is in 2018. Sandburg is going through a drainage sewer major construction project, which the green space areas that we went over at our meeting that they would utilize, as well as the game field, would be affected by this major construction that's slated to start in June. Now it takes from the north piece by the varsity baseball field all the way through the parking lot, including an area south of the football stadium. So as far as relocating the Pioneer program in 2018, it's not a viable option at Sandburg. 2018 or 2019, absolutely. They would work with the organizations to schedule games, schedule practices with some restrictions, of course. So as late as Friday, I have the agreement from 2:30. What Kerry touched on as far as the sports facilities and events consultant, that's an important piece, because really when I'm working with staff and trying to drill down and see the allocations of fields as a whole, I think it's important that we look, we always talk about revenue streams. Ultimately, our main core is to take care of our customers and our kids here in Orland Park. But then there's also a revenue stream issue. When you talk to some of the organizations, like OYA, they hold a 4th of July tournament over here at Humphrey. They don't even use Field 3 because it's unsafe and they can't schedule games there. They have a 40-team tournament. They would love to bring in additional teams. The rental fees that we garner from some of those tournaments are substantial. It doesn't pay for all of the staff, but still, we have out-of-town teams, the indirect fees that, the indirect revenue stream that we would be bringing in by bringing these, local tournaments and regional tournaments in here to Orland Park, could be substantial. So I think it's important to have this consultant who has a regional perspective as well as an international perspective to know what the market is dictating out there when you're talking about the possibility of redeveloping this back to an ultimately baseball, softball, a multi-use facility. So I think, and when you're talking dollars, he's putting dollars on and coming up with a business plan and recommendations that the board can consider and staff can consider and ultimately come back with more of a knowledge-based long-term plan, short-term also. So I think that's important. Speeding it up. You guys did ask for some options. Okay, so one of the options that, if we were to consider the dollars that Gary and his team have right now for the redevelopment of John Humphrey, option number one, ultimately keep the same footprint at Humphrey, shut it down, start after football season this year. So the Pioneers would continue to utilize the facility until football season is over, whether it be mid-October or the 1st of November. Then we would start the redevelopment plan. We would lose all of 2019. It's more cost-effective, in our opinion, to do the complete redevelopment in phases, taking half of the fields to grade and update the drainage and irrigation system could be challenging. Ultimately, to save those dollars, we would redevelop all of Humphrey, the footprint itself, in 2019. So all teams would be displaced. Pioneers would go to Sandburg. The Mikes, St. Michael's, and the Knights would then absorb their additional game days over at Sandburg. District 230 said they'd be willing to welcome them their homecoming with some restrictions, but ultimately they would, still have the same feel of their homecoming facility. And then ultimately on option one is after 2019 is, totally grid down, based on the field conditions in 2020, bring those teams all back to Humphrey. Okay? Is that exactly how it is right now? Some of the pros and cons of that, the cost savings by doing it all at one time, restoring those fields, graded, updated irrigation, existing lighting and tower scoreboard to remain the same. We don't have the cost of moving that.
John?
Go ahead.
Question, you just said exactly as it is now.
That's option 1A.
With football in the outfields of the baseball fields?
Correct. If that, now, it's not ideal conditions because you're bringing them back to the same, concerns that we have as far as.
That's one option.
That's one
There
option.
are others.
There's others.
Okay.
Correct. That's option one. Is it ideal? No.
It's
Like the
worse
Knights,
than that.
right. The concern is spending those dollars to upgrade those fields and drainage and regrading and then bringing, football practice back in the outfields. Sure, there would be restrictions, moving around, and I've talked to the Pioneers coach, similar like I talked to the Knights coach. The Orland Knights use Centennial ball fields. They use 1 and 2 to practice in the outfield before Labor Day. Granted, smaller program, 80 to 85 in numbers, but then after Labor Day, they move to a different 2 fields. They move to field 3 and 4. Basically, so they're not repping and practicing in the same area.
Can you go back one slide? I wasn't sure if I should hold my questions to the stakeholders.
Okay.
I am curious, Tinley Park Bulldogs football and cheer. How are they a stakeholder?
I engage them just because
Why?
the reason being is they're practicing at Andrew High School right now.
Okay.
So I wanted to get some input from the Tinley Park Bulldogs. How do they deal, first of all, where do they practice in Andrew? They have temporary lighting that they utilize. How does that work with the school district? Is it accommodating? So that was just some of the people, the stakeholders. They're not a stakeholder in Humphrey, but I engaged them to try to find out how their relationship is with 230. And it was important. It was an important piece when I talked to Sandburg about past practice of already having the Bulldogs established over at Andrew.
Well, and Pioneers is already established at Sandburg, has been for years.
Right, on the game day field, but not on practice.
Right.
So the Bulldogs utilize the west portion of Andrew, south and west of the school, for their practice 3 days a week. And they utilize temporary lighting on the facility. So that's the reason why I gave them a call to see how they work through that.
Okay, so, and if we were to hold off and not do anything in 18, even though money is budgeted, what do we do with that field that is unusable?
Well, that field already has been, we've directed Parks and Rec not to schedule that Field 3.
So it'll be shut down for the
It's
season?
shut down. Yeah, it is not scheduled for the spring and summer this year
good.
because of the concerns of the field condition.
Right, I mean, would be awful. Okay.
And ultimately, the risk of damage to the newly improved grass areas by football practice, game dates with limited recovery time. So if we brought them back in the same condition, our concerns are, we're damned going back to right where we were beforehand. One of the other options would be, so option B, same footprint as we have now, eliminate football game field and replace it with an 80-foot or an 80-yard field for flag football only. So keep the same footprint of Humphrey, shut it down in 2019, do the improvements. Ultimately, if the Pioneers decide to come back, there's always, the possibility that they go to Sandburg and they like the relationship that they have with Sandburg. It's more convenient. They have their program there. They have the restroom facilities. They have temporary lighting that they could utilize. They have the option to use the game field when it's not occupied for practice. Ultimately, if they go there in 19 and they decide they have it's a good home for them, District 230 said we can continue that relationship if there's no concerns or issues. However, 1B would, if they did come back to Humphrey, we would eliminate that game field. So tackle football would not have a game field. So St. Mike's, the Knights, and the Pioneers would not have their game field for the weekends. We would consider putting an 80-yard flag football. In the advent of some of the CTE, some new laws that are exploring, their flag program is increasing. So flag football, smaller utes, less wear and tear on the field, in theory. And if we were to put that 80-yard flag field that I had previously on this slide, right here, there would be no impact on moving lights or utilities. You have the tower there. You still have the scoreboard at the end of the on the west end here that could be utilized. It's a smaller field, less impact, and the Pioneers use it on weekends, and they also do sometimes they have a weekday flag game. So,
All right, so you're identifying that field strictly for
flag
football.
Flag football for option B, correct?
And I believe
Now-
they would come back for practice as well. And then they would
But you're
rotate,
saying-
they would rotate kind of
That's
like,
not my point. My point is you're saying football alone, not lacrosse, not soccer.
No, the 80-yard field currently isn't scheduled right now. The flag football that's mapped out for them currently that they use, to my knowledge, lacrosse doesn't practice on that because that field's not large enough.
No, but what I thought we had discussed was making a larger field that can be shrunk
Correct.
or expanded according to the sport.
So-
Numbers, lacrosse is growing, football is not.
Right.
Flag may increase, we don't know. And soccer has been large. So I would think we'd want to make it multi-purpose.
And I agree with you, Trustee Guerra, and that's some of the concerns or some of the issues that we talked about. Option 2 would be, again, 2018, split the fields in half. Everything to the east, this would be a game field, a multi-purpose field, not strictly for football, a multi-purpose, 80,000 square feet up to 90,000 square feet, which would encompass full soccer, lacrosse. I mean, my wish list would be to make this a turf field, as the trend is going for, turf football or turf multi-use fields. I mean, my teams used to practice on Lincoln Way Central on the turf for baseball. You can't have baseball games, but, the benefits are endless for scheduling and, multi-use field. So this would be to, totally cut these in half, still utilize a green space here for flag or any other organization that needs to use the green space. We're not impacting Field 1 or Field 4. If we had the dollars, put a multi-purpose turf field here, continue to use 5 and 6, because as you know, the scheduling, when we're looking at the numbers, these fields are scheduled, spring and summer pretty heavy, as well as fall baseball and softball. Due to the fact we're losing 2 fields, one of the theories was to add a additional baseball field, move Field 11, and add a Field 12 here. So that was just option 2. This is just some of the language that I utilize. Redesign Field 11 and 12. Pioneers return to John Humphrey with practice restrictions for the grassy areas, just like option 1. But then again, we'd have that turf field. The benefits of it, initially, with that last option with the turf field, the theory is if we bring a game day field back and people are practicing on it with the weather, it just gets beat down over and over again, and it kind of defeats the whole purpose. Obviously, it's an increase. One of the cons is increased cost of the project that has not been budgeted, and the elimination of 2 fields from that initial footprint at John Humphrey. However, if we were to absorb one of those fields over at High Point, that could be a viable option.
and John, sorry, go ahead, Pat.
So a sport that's growing, baseball, you're taking one of their fields away for a sport whose numbers aren't a quarter.
Well, we would take, in that option, would be removing 2 fields from the 4 cluster and relocating one of those over to the High Point property. You know, there's all kinds of different layouts that if we had a blank footprint for John Humphrey and for High Point to try to accommodate, and actually one of the options, one of the conceptuals, and I'll go through this in the interest of time, this is just a breakdown, and I'll give it to you, give each of the committee members or board members a copy of it. When you're looking over the difference between natural grass and turf, and you're talking about $5 per square foot. This is based on an 80,000 square foot field. Some of the benefits of turf, I know this is my wish list from a scheduling perspective and a revenue stream and a rental. Increased field usage by multiple sports for the life of the surface. One of the other things in my research that I also came up with, or that I found, the increased safety to athletes, because the concern back in the day was always, you know, that turf is harder on the body and more injuries. But as technology and the new products that are available, this is one of the studies in 2014, and that study was based on the amount of, you know, ground up tire granules that you utilize on your field. So they're coming up with better products, better recommendations for the safety of the kids. Option 3, and this is just the wish list here, and I know the board, the direction was to give us some options. This isn't from our consultant, this is just our in-house planners and engineers that came up with it. This is one of the wish lists here, making it a multi-purpose, multi-use complex. This is your western pad that's about 4.2 acres up on West Avenue. This is West Avenue here, just to kind of orientate you to that. My probably recommendation would be a turf field.
Where's the parking?
The parking here, when the engineers, the in-house engineers looked at this, when you're talking about the grading issues and drainage, their theory was, here's the parking, we would relocate, eliminate that driveway, just conceptual, of course, eliminate the driveway going north and south through the complex. We would move the parking to the north pad. Thus, all the drainage and, you know, would go north into a paved area, into the receptacles out here. We have the school district utilizes the entrance off of West Avenue for drop-off for the kids now in the morning and during the day. This is a turnaround here, because a lot of the, as we identified talking to these organizations, a lot of the parents do the drop-off at practice, even games. They'll drop the kids off. So the engineers came up with, hey, this is a turnaround drop-off area. That way they don't have to go through the whole parking lot to drop off the children for practice or games. This is a drop-off area.
It's also where the teachers park.
I'm sorry?
Teachers park there,
Yeah,
too.
so that would be, I mean, the teachers would, if some teachers park here for High Point, we would be eliminating that parking lot. You know, they would have to, you know, park over on the southeast pad over here. It's more convenient for the High Point teachers to park here because they could just walk across. So that would be one of the, you know, they utilize our parking lot. This just is a conceptual, you know, with a concession and some overhead, you know, shaded area, and then utilizing the Humphrey area pad to make the 90-foot bases. You know, the trend now is between 8 years old and 13 as far as baseball. The drop-off becomes significant after age 13. So there's more need for the smaller 200, 215-yard fence fields to accommodate the younger kids. So this is all conceptual. But I know you guys had, the board had asked for some options. Taking a more comprehensive look with the consultant, we feel will give us a better handle on the needs of what ultimately that layout would be.
And on John's point there, I think that's why the consultant's key, because we talk about eliminating maybe 1 or 2 diamonds at John Humphrey versus a multi-purpose. Are we losing? Are we gaining? And that gives the outside number to say, is it beneficial for a tournament that has 6 versus 8 or 6 versus 4 or vice versa. So that's why I think this is key in figuring out before we make any major decisions on using some major money. I mean, $500,000 plus is a lot of money that we don't do it hastily and make sure we're good stewards of the taxpayers' money. That's why I think that this is key. So
I worry, though, that that's somebody who's that familiar, as you said, with the fields. Would it be better to put fresh eyes that have not played on it, used it for tournaments and stuff? Would that be easier for someone who has no preconceptions of how it's used?
Well, as far as the consultant having a preconception of the fields, I know the father, DJ, he happened to be he was a minor league baseball player, so he was, gone for years. Where I think their perspective is important. They're not just strictly baseball and softball. They're a sports facilities. There's some of the projects that they've already worked on up in Wisconsin Dells being one of them. Carrie's got the list of some of the other projects that they worked on. They look at it as a whole. They're not, specific to baseball, football. They're not specific to one particular. The consultant will give you what the needs of the community. When we have increased numbers in lacrosse, soccer numbers go through the roof, and as well as the advent. We have to look down the road. The future planning, as far as what are some of these new potential state laws, how they're going to affect our numbers. I know there's an increase in flag football. Those numbers are steadily climbing also.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
I know that the Humphrey update was simply a discussion, and it points out to me the need to follow, first of all, the board's recommendation or direction from December, as well as what Mr. Keating and the staff has done, which is a great job of giving us some options to start thinking about. I think the consultant's report, as you had already indicated, is valuable. For that reason, I'd call the previous question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Centennial Park Aquatic Center, bulk chlorine purchase for 2018-19 and the option of extending for 20.
Gary, go ahead. You can give a quick.
Mr. Chair, this seeking permission on renewing a contract with Mineral Masters, which is our current vendor for the bulk purchase of chlorine for the Centennial Park Aquatic Center. We reached out, received quotes from 2 different vendors. Our current vendor does offer an 18% solution, which Univar, which is another major player in the game, does not. Staff prefers using the 18% solution over the 15. They can balance the pools a little bit better. In addition to that as well, with the usage of the new chemical controllers we just installed, we dropped chlorine usage about 1,500 gallons between 16 and 17. So
Wow.
our usage is going down. It's working well at that percentage.
Perfect. Is any questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? I know it's almost 7, so you're probably here for the main meeting, but any questions? Looking through,
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Guerra.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve pricing from Mineral Masters for bulk chlorine 18%, purchase and delivery at a rate not to exceed $1.18 per gallon for the years 2018 and 2019, with the possibility of extending into 2020, providing pricing does not increase more than 5%.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Centennial Park Aquatic Center, variable frequency drives.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Guerra. Trustee Carroll.
I move to recommend to the village board to award bid number 18-003, Centennial Park Aquatic Center variable frequency drives, an amount not to exceed $38,993 to Davcom Electric, Inc. of Orland Park.
Second.
Okay, you want to give a quick?
Mr. Chair, just a quick update on that. We purchased 2 of these variable frequency drives in late fall. I brought them to committee and you guys approved them. We did just receive a rebate check for those from the fall from ComEd for almost $14,000. So that
Nice.
offsets the cost. We will be applying for them for these as well. I don't know what the exact rate's going to be, that will be determined, but
Gary, the 2 old ones paid for themselves. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. Any questions
They save our
from?
equipment.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? From the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
2018 distribution of 3 recreational department program guides.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, I'll be fast. So we're requesting the
Take your time.
approval to have the 3 program guides, the summer, fall, and winter, spring, be distributed through the Orland Park Post Office. It continues to reach over 26,000 active residents, and that's about it.
in talking with staff, I've tried to talk about how we could maybe go more electronic, but I think our customers rely on looking at the book and keeping it in their home. I know my wife has it marked and earmarked and whatever, but
Dog-eared.
But maybe moving forward, we see how we can cut a printing cost somehow, and we always talk about that. So, looking for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Garrett.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the distribution of 3 2018 recreation program guides through the United States Post Office for the budgeted amount of $21,000.
Second.
Any questions from the board? Questions from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Recreation Department Program Guide, 2018 Summer Program List Approval.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, so what you have before you is our 2018 summer program offerings. As you know, we bring the brochure or the program offerings to you every season. These costs that are included in here are covered by revenue generated through registration fees. Actual costs are dependent on the number of participants that are registered in the program. Staff does analyze our programs every season. In this program guide alone, we've discontinued 19 programs. We've added 14 new programs. So there's a lot of time and effort that goes into analyzing each program that we put out there.
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Carroll.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the recommended programs and payment to the contractual instructors at time of invoicing.
Second.
Any questions from the board? I just want to make a quick comment. First of all, great job. I know you guys analyze it. Maybe for the next round, or we can get the information where we have the cost of it, other than, because right now it's just all of them under $5,000, just to see what the cost benefit is. So it's on the charts. So we kind of could see how much we're making, how much we're not. But I don't want to cancel programs because it's not making a lot of money, but just to see what the cost benefit is. Okay. Any questions from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Orland Park Health and Fitness Center, 29-piece selectorized equipment purchase approval.
This is pretty self-explanatory. The money is budgeted. When Orland Park Health and Fitness was opened in 2001, the selectorized equipment was purchased for that site. It is now 16 years later, and the equipment is breaking down. It's outdated. A lot of it that breaks down can't be replaced or reworked, so it's removed from the floor. Where staff is seeking to replace 32 pieces of selectorized fitness equipment with 29 units that will work with your muscle workout better and more seamlessly. In addition to that, we're looking at an additional 4 pieces of equipment through Direct Life Fitness. So these pieces of equipment, we went through National Joint Powers and Association, so we were able to get the best quotes and the best prices, plus we were able to get an additional percentage off through Life Fitness, and the prices for Direct Fitness Solutions was at its lowest price offered through National Joint Powers and Association.
Looking for a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Guerra.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the purchase of 25 pieces of selectorized fitness equipment through Life Fitness at a total cost of $95,974.10, and recommend the purchase of 4 pieces of selectorized fitness equipment through Direct Fitness Solutions for $25,766 for a total expense of $121,740.10.
Second.
Any questions from the committee, from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion adjourned.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that was the committee. We'll be up and board in a couple minutes. Thanks, guys. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
Who sprung for the glasses?
Let's clarify that.
Doing the same issue. Thank you, sir.
Because I reached out.
These fancy schmancy glasses.
Yeah, what?
When we sit in committee, we have to take your guys.
Breaking pretty much on.